This is Divine Lifestyles with Tara Magalski. What is a divine lifestyle? Passion, purpose, and living in alignment with your truth.
Well, hello and welcome to the Divine Lifestyle Podcast. My name is Nick Paulkuski, and I'm actually here as a special guest because I'm going to introduce you to your host, the person who is going to be taking over and running this Divine Lifestyle Podcast. So let's bring her on. And Tara, how are you doing?
How are you? I'm doing good today. Thank you so much for interviewing me.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you so much for actually wanting to start this podcast. And really for this podcast, this episode of the podcast, what we're going to do is just get to know you a little bit more, get to know a little bit more about the podcast, and what people can actually expect going forward from this episode.
Cool.
So Tara, why don't you just give us a quick little overview of who you are?
All right. Where should I start? Who I am? Well, I'm just a girl from upstate New York, from Fishkill, New York, who moved to the big city with big dreams 15 years ago, or 14 and a half years ago now. But who I am really is I'm just someone who is really passionate about sharing my experiences with others to help lead them to deeper healing and transformation. And that is the whole point of this podcast and Divine Lifestyles being a multimedia platform. That's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, why don't you actually give us a little overview of what Divine Lifestyles is? You know, said a multimedia platform, but what is all encompassing within Divine Lifestyles?
Yeah, so I'll give you the short version, give you the long version later.
Perfect.
So Divine Lifestyles, what that means to me is that means when you are living your passion and your purpose and you're living in alignment with your truth. Meaning that all those things that we think that we should be doing, going down those roads, becoming a doctor, doing all these different things that society tells us to do, which I did for many years. When we realize that there's something much deeper, there's a deeper calling inside of us, and we actually move towards that calling, step into that power, and then create our divine lifestyle. Which is something that I struggled with for most of my life, which is usually what happens when people start doing businesses. It's because of something they struggled with. And I struggled most of my life with really trying to figure out what my highest calling was. And what was I here on earth to do? And it was always a question I had from when I was a small little girl. But as I got older and I started, living in the world, I stopped listening to that inner voice and I started to do what I thought I was supposed to do. And okay, I'm going to get this corporate job. I'm going to work in media and I'm going to do all these different things. And I tried a million different careers and I realized that's really not where I need to be. I'm not listening to my deepest self. And it wasn't until 8 years ago when I lost my mother very suddenly that I kind of had this awakening and I realized, wow, life is really short. I better start doing what it is I'm here to do, what I'm called to do. And I like to say that Divine Lifestyles is part of, I say, let your mess be your message. So let your experiences and your story shape your voice. And I think that that's really what this podcast is about. I love to highlight other people's stories because I think that there's so much power in sharing. Your story is going to speak to one person. My story might speak to another person. And I think Divine Lifestyles is a platform where we can just share stories of healing and transformation. Show, it's not just one story, right? On this podcast, you're going to hear people who have struggles with health, weight, body image, addiction, eating disorders, mindset shifts, physical struggles. So it's all encompassing.
No, I love that. That really resonates because I think one thing that so many people do is, like you said, they fall into that trap of what they feel like they're supposed to do. And they go down like this certain path that other people are almost prescribing for them. But then,
drink the Kool-Aid.
Exactly.
I call it you drank the Kool-Aid.
Exactly. But we all have those struggles. We all have that story, but we don't share it very often. We kind of keep it bottled up, try to hide it from the world. And so I love that you're out here really sharing those stories of transformation, sharing those stories of change, and how people are able to survive that mess, like you said. So
yeah. One thing I just want to say to that is what I feel really called to do is to get real. A lot of people think, and it might be like languaging, divine lifestyles. Oh, I'm like, no, this is getting real. We're talking about real struggles that people deal with on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of times people don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about, oh, well, let me manifest and just speak positivity out in the world. And I believe in that as well. But I also believe the best way to get to healing is to stare at the problem, look at it, move through it, and let it go. So I really wanted to just get real with people. I just wanted to have great conversations and share their stories, because I feel like a lot of the people I've been interviewing, they're just superheroes to me. These are people that are doing amazing things, that have overcome such adversity, and they inspire me. So this was kind of this is like my pet project too. I'm like, I get to interview all these great people and share this with the world and learn so much. This is awesome.
Oh yeah, and that's really the best way to kind of start a project, is something that you're super passionate about. Well, Tara, I want to actually dive in a little bit more into your story. This platform is all about sharing stories, but let us know kind of what your journey looked like. What were the big turning points in your life?
Yeah. So telling this story never gets old. It all started out, the catalyst for the transformation started out for me 8 years ago. And that was when my mother passed away. And that was when I had a real big shift. Prior to that, I was working and I was living life and everything was great. And I was acting and I was in movies and I was going to move to LA. And I guess I thought that I had made it or something. I couldn't have gone higher. I remember being 25 and being like, this is great. I'm going to go conquer the world. And everything was just lining up perfectly until one day. And that one day was Memorial Day weekend. And that was when I got a phone call that my mother had passed away. Now, mind you, I had been planning on moving to LA within the next couple months because I was going for it. This was my big chance, strike while the iron's hot. I had 3 movies in theaters. I was like, this is the time to go. Plus, my confidence was there. And I got the phone call that my mom had died, but no one had given me too much information. They just found her. It was one morning and just get home. That morning, as you can imagine, my entire life shifted. My mother was my best friend and pretty much my biggest fan and support system. So she was a single mother, and I, was raised with my mother and sister. So that foundation really rocked my world. And I went upstate to find out that she had passed from a combination of prescription pills. And so she died in her sleep. So basically a lot what happened to Heath Ledger, it was an accidental intoxication. So it was a combination. I like to always say what it was. I do believe that there was negligence on her end of mixing pills. She was on Darvon, Vicodin, Chantix, which is what they believe was actually the killer. That's a non-smoking drug. And then she had some traces of Xanax, and I think she had just gotten off Wellbutrin. I mean, we're just talking a prescription cocktail. And there was negligence with her in the sense that she was definitely taking them and not even caring that they were mixing, but she also was prescribed these pills. Mm-hmm. So that being said, I just always like to share that because I think people should know. And the studies that we've done, they believe that Chantex is actually what was the factor that killed her. Because what happens, that mixed with all the other pills can be deadly.
Yeah. Wow. That's
So, I mean, I'll go on record saying that. I don't want any drug companies coming after me, but studies have shown that there's lots of cases similar.
Wow, that's definitely a rough period for sure. So what was kind of the transformation that really came out of that for you? Or how did you get through that even?
So I'm just kind of walking you through slowly. But so after that happened, I, of course, went into a pretty deep depression, pretty deep funk. Everything that I had known to be my life was going to be different. I wasn't going to move to LA anymore because I needed to help my sister. My sister had a young daughter and 2 stepchildren. And I felt like we all were so rocked by this. My father was also pretty rocked by this. And he was struggling with addiction prior to her passing. He had already been in and out of rehab, but he was clean at this time. So I felt like it was my responsibility to stay home and care for my family because I felt like it was completely falling apart. So I stayed home and I didn't move to LA, and I decided that I was going to quit my job and I was going to quit everything that I was doing. And I was really going to focus on, I wanted to figure out what life was about. You know, I went to Jamaica for 3 months with my uncle, and I quit my job and I said, I'm just going to take this time to reflect on what I'm here to do in life and how can I serve? So that's what I did. And I spent the next year and a half soul searching, just working not much here and there. I literally kind of quit life for a while. But during that year and a half, I struggled a lot with depression. And I would say I kind of lost my appetite for life. So I wasn't taking care of myself physically. I was definitely very underweight. I wouldn't say I was anorexic, but I definitely had the mindset. I had disordered eating, not an eating disorder. And I had a very unhealthy relationship with food. And that is what kind of brought me into the catalyst of going back to school for nutrition, 6 months later, and really learning how to care for myself because my body was a physical manifestation of my emotional state during that time. And I remember one day I was in my room and I was soul searching and I was crying and I was like, God, universe, whoever, I don't care, Jesus, Muhammad, I don't care who it is. I just need an intervention. I need something, some supernatural power to come into my life and show me the way. And I had a really amazing experience of just, kind of being on my hands and knees in my apartment on my floor, sobbing, really surrendered. And I actually felt for the first time the presence of God in my life. And I felt this supernatural bubble of love just kind of caressing me and keeping me safe and actually lifting me up off my feet and able to stand. And I remember being like, whoa, where did that come from? Like, how did this, what was that? And through the next couple weeks of just diving deeper into spirituality, and I'm not talking religion, I'm just talking spirituality and trying to understand what that presence I felt was. Divine lifestyles came over me. It was in deep prayer and meditation. And I asked what my calling was. What am I don't know what this is, And I heard divine lifestyles. And I still didn't know what it meant. But I said, okay, what does this mean? And it's just been a journey ever since of really articulating what this is and just having a deep knowing and listening every day and waking up and saying, how can I serve? How can I serve? And that's kind of where this all came from. Nice. The platform came from that, that question. And so it has become this journey for 8 years every day of, okay, now what do I do? How do I stay so connected to my highest being, to God, that I can serve every day? Okay. And then this is just kind of, I think, what's next.
Nice. No,
It might sound so crazy, but that's it.
But no, I think that's a perfect like illustration, because really, living your divine lifestyle, or really we're all in this big journey, and it is kind of figuring it out every day, showing up, trying to figure out where are we going? What is our path? What steps do we need to take next? So I guess as we are right now, what does a divine lifestyle look like to you?
Like I said before, for me, it's really important to be living with purpose, serving something that is outside of yourself, right? How can I serve others? I feel like I'm called to share stories, to share experiences, to highlight voices that I believe are change makers. So that's an element of a divine lifestyle. I also believe that it's living your life to the highest potential. So that's in all areas of your life. How do I get my health to a 10? How do I live with passion? Get up every day and say, this is, I'm doing what I love to do. Do what you love what you do. How do I get to that place? And then also being able to reap the benefits of that, creating a life of ultimate freedom and not having to be bound by, I've got to go work this job because I have to make this money. I mean, I've done that for years, and I really struggled. And I said, how do I create this life that I know that I'm meant to live?
Yeah.
I know that I'm meant and I'm called to do more. But why do I keep thinking that I've got to go waitress, or I've got to go bartend, or I've got to go, how do I shift this mindset to a real place of freedom? And so that's, to me, what a divine lifestyle is. It's just being in that alignment. And I believe that once you're working with your passion, your purpose, and you're serving, and you're in alignment, and you're really listening to what it is you feel called to do, that everything else falls into place. I mean, I could never have imagined, even 5 years ago, where I live today, the life that I've been able to create for myself. And it hasn't been easy. I mean, there's a lot of struggles along the way. And to this day, I mean, I struggle a lot even, and I do my videos about struggling with emotional eating, still struggling with the fact my father is still an addict, and I still get these crazy phone calls. I just got one 2 days ago that he was in jail, and I hadn't heard from him in 6 months, so I didn't know if he was dead or alive. And I was relieved to get a phone call knowing that he was alive, even though it was from the sheriffs. I was like, oh, thank God he's alive, because we had no way of getting in touch with him. So we all have our struggles, but what I'm here to say is just get up and do just a little bit every day. Take one step closer to doing what you feel you're called to do, and everything else just kind of doesn't hold as much power in your life. It doesn't control you as much. It doesn't bind you as much. I love to think of it like, rising out of the ashes. That's what we're here to do. I really believe that as human beings, that's what we're here to do.
I just love that. Yeah, it's really about turning, those obstacles that get in your way and just overcoming those and turning those into the reason that you succeed. It's about making your obstacles your launching
biggest
pad,
strength.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny what our mutual friend Hal says. It's like, let that be the fuel, the fire. Let that fire you up.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. So and that's the idea. Like, I'm interviewing people on this podcast that are doing this, that are living this, that I look up to. I admire them. And I say, wow, all right, you need to be highlighted. Wow, because if I can get up every day and interview these amazing people, then I'm fulfilling my destiny. Yeah. Because I get charged. I'm like, yes. I get charged every day knowing that I can put out and share something this beautiful in the world with other people that might not know them,
right,
but I hear of them, and vice versa.
Yeah, no, and that's really the perfect little transition here to what are our listeners out there, what can they really expect moving forward? You know, you're saying you're going to share some stories, but what are they really looking for or looking to get from this podcast?
I really hope my goal is to educate, inspire, and transform. So those are the three main, goals that I'm going after. So educating by sharing stories, asking questions, getting tips from different people. Everybody has their own way of handling their journey, their story, their difficulties. So I get their tips. Do they have daily practices? What can, actionable steps that they can implement on a daily basis? Inspire, of course, just by hearing the stories and seeing someone that's gone before you that is succeeding, or someone that is actually struggling with something much more detrimental than what you're going through. And that helps you to put things into perspective. And then, of course, transform. I'm hoping to ignite that in people. If people can listen to this podcast and just get ignited for a moment, and I can plant that seed, or whoever is my guest can plant that seed for transformation, then I've done my job.
I love it. I love it. So Tara, as we kind of wrap up this introductory episode, what is maybe that one piece of advice that you would like to leave with our listeners as they go out there and, live their divine lifestyle this week?
Never take no for an answer. I've always been the type of girl that if anyone ever said no to me, it's also I'm a little bratty, but people say no, I say why? Instead of, I say, well, why not? Why not? Why can't I do that? Okay, that doesn't make sense. Well, why not? I mean, why? Everything is figure outable. So why can't I do that? Think outside of the box, stretch yourself, and don't take no. Always ask people, why not? Instead of why. Why not?
Nice. I love it. So Tara, thank you so much again for, starting this podcast, for sharing these inspirational stories that you're going to be sharing on this podcast. We all appreciate you for doing that. And yeah, it's time for all of us to go out there and really live our divine lifestyle.
Thank you so much. I just hope people listening really find it valuable, and I hope that it helps. And my goal is to serve the listener. So I hope that they get whatever they need from it, because I feel like I'm here to serve them with these stories.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe to this channel to get your weekly fix for all you spiritual gangsters. Any questions or comments, go to my site at taramagalski.com. Drop me a note. I'd love to hear from you. And stay tuned for next week. I got the good stuff.